Morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us here. Obviously, last night there was a hearing in Melbourne. Judge Gordon Lewis made a decision about David Warner's indiscretion in England on the weekend, and he's issued a penalty which Cricket Australia is supportive of, understanding that that's an independent process. An esteemed judge has sat and heard the evidence and made a decision on that, and in the circumstances we're comfortable with the decision that he's arrived at. Not in any way comfortable with the incident that happened in Birmingham on Saturday night, and I think as a starting point I'd make the observation that I see that as being a significant contravention of the values that the team and Cricket Australia and Australian cricket as a whole sees as being appropriate for employees of our organisation. A couple of values that I want to mention here: accountability and excellence are two of the four Australian cricket values that were revisited by the Australian cricket team only a few days prior in England ahead of the Champions Trophy. And I see that they're two really fundamental things to a successful sporting team and organisation. David Warner's specific indiscretion is entirely appropriate. There is no place for violence anywhere, and I'm extremely disappointed in that. I'm extremely disappointed in him, and I have told him that. He knows that and he understands that. I also, can I just finish, please?
Sorry.
I'm also very disappointed in the team. There were certain things that led to this situation that happened, as I understand, at 2:30 in the morning. There's not a lot of good that happens at 2:30 in the morning in a pub or a nightclub. And I believe that the team as a whole and the people that were around him at the time also need to take responsibility for what happened, and they are under no illusions that they have that responsibility. And again, that comes back to the values and behaviours that we expect. I'm disappointed, and Australian cricket fans have every right to be disappointed. And I want to assure you that me and the management of Cricket Australia and the people on the ground in England will be doing everything possible to make sure that we continue down the path of continuing to build a successful team that Australian cricket fans can be proud of. In regard to David Warner himself, I hope this is a turning point for him. I note that overnight he's made comments apologising for what he's done and expressing remorse for his actions. That's all well and good. It counts for a little bit, but not much. What really counts is his actions going forward in the future, and we're watching those very closely. Thanks.
Is he lucky to be available for the first test in the Ashes?
Yeah, I think he's very lucky. Could have been a lot worse, couldn't it? It should never have got to that. And as it stands, yes, he is lucky to be available for selection.
You say you're disappointed, that's all good and well. But if one of your players or a Cricket Australia player punches someone head in the bar and doesn't get sent home within 2 hours, what do you have to do to get sent home?
Look, Ben, I understand that question that you're asking, but I think that's a question to ask the judge who sat and made an assessment on the evidence that he heard last night. I wasn't there. I haven't heard the evidence. It's not my role to sit in on judgment of that. It's Gordon Lewis's job. He's a very experienced Supreme Court judge. I respect the decision he's made. He's made the call that this penalty is appropriate in the circumstances, and cricket people know it's going to be very, very hard for David Warner to get selected for the first Test match. He can't play cricket until the first Test match starts.
Is David on his last warning?
I'm sure that Gordon Lewis would be of the view that he's seen him way too often in the last month, and David is certainly, in the conversation that I had with him last night, and I'll see him in England next week, he's under no illusions as to the direction his career is heading right at this moment.
What about from Cricket Australia's point of view, though? From a management point of view?
What do you mean by
Is
that?
David on his last legs, last sit, one more indiscretion, or where's he stand?
What's an indiscretion? Look, that's, you can try and catch me out on that, but the reality is David Warner is under no illusions as to where he sits and the responsibility he has to Australian cricket fans, his teammates, and we have very high expectations that he will make much better decisions going forward.
Dave said he doesn't have a drinking problem. Do you think it's an attitude or behavioural problem?
I accept what he has, but I'll also be taking expert advice on that within the team to make sure, with our various professionals inside the team, to make some additional judgments on that to provide whatever support is necessary. Whatever the case is, he's making some pretty ordinary decisions and getting himself into trouble, and he's bringing the game and his teammates and the team down. And that's not going to be tolerated for any much longer.
Is there going to be a curfew imposed on him on the tour?
That it's up to the team to do that. I'm not really a believer in management curfews. I think the team need to make their own decisions about what they believe is in the best interests of the team. And let's come back to the values here. The values of accountability and excellence. Well, what is it that these players, that this team needs to commit to in order to get the best possible performance for the remainder of the Champions Trophy, and then as a new team gathers for the Ashes series ahead?
Michael said overnight in his press conference that he thought progress was being made on the team culture. What's your view on that?
Oh yeah, I think that's absolutely true. There will be incidents or issues from time to time that crop up, and they need to be addressed along the way. We're a long way off that, and I think that the events of Saturday night are a rude awakening for some people that might be thinking they're a little bit more advanced in that process than they were. And I repeat, David Warner has done a despicable thing, but I also hold the team to account here. They need to. There are other people there with him, and the team, those that were there, need to take responsibility for that. But so does the team as a whole, and the team management group as a whole as well.
Will there be ramifications internally or otherwise for those players that were there at that time?
Yeah, we'll deal with those. They have already been spoken to, and they would understand that, and we'll continue to talk to them about how they can make better decisions in the future as well.
How many players are we talking about there? Can we check?
Well, my understanding is, I don't know the facts, someone might help me out here, but I understand there were, I think, 5 other players. Yeah.
Who were those players, James?
I don't know all the names. If I did mention them, I might get one wrong, and then I'd be in big trouble.
Without making excuses for David, he plays all 3 forms of the game, and he is on the road a lot of the year. I mean, do you think that maybe, given the 2 incidents in the last couple of weeks, that maybe a line has to be drawn in terms of just how much cricket any one player can take on?
Mate, there is no excuse for what happened on Saturday night. I don't care what explanations people might want to put up. There is no place for violence in society, and there is no place for Australian cricketers to be finding themselves in that position.
James, this is probably the last or latest of a long series of the Warner major going back 5 or 6 years with the latest transgression, not back to signings. Do you wish yourself and the Cricket Australia had a bit of a tough one leading up to some of these things?
I mean, you can look back over the last 10 years and you can pick out issues and you can bundle them all up together and say, gee, the Australian cricket team's badly behaved. The Australian cricket team is not badly behaved. They can always be better, and they will be the first to admit that. But if you want to look selectively and just pick those out, let's have a look at all the good things they're doing, and they're good people, and they're doing a good job. They need to get better, and they are the first to admit that. We have values, they have values that they have subscribed to, and they are continuing to work on their commitment. What we're looking for, and what the Australian public looks for from them, quite rightly, is behaviours and consistency that the Australian fans can be proud of. And hopefully that ultimately sees winning performances as well. We want to be proud of them for their performances on the field and off the field as great ambassadors for Australia.
James, the players in India were stood down for a test match. That David Warner's been given a lesser punishment for that. Does that send a bit of a muddled message in terms of crimes and punishments and ramifications
sorry, David Warner's penalty is not lesser than what happened in Mahali. I don't know where you're getting that from or how you're doing your sums on that, but that's just not right. Okay, well, let's go through that offline, because that's just not right. They're two very separate issues here, very different issues, and I think that there was the internal aspect of Mahali has been dealt with. I am on record as saying that I support the decision that was ultimately made, but I'm not at all happy with the process in which we arrived at the decisions that we did in Mahali, and everyone involved in that knows and understands, and we've discussed how things might have been better arrived at on reflection. But that was an internal issue about team discipline. This is a lot worse than this. This is a code of behaviour breach for a despicable act that is not acceptable in any place in society.
Thoughts of sending another batsman over, someone a replacement perhaps, in case, because this is harming our Ashes campaign now by him not playing any pre-games. So, any thoughts of sending someone over in case?
Look, there'll be no one going over. We've got two teams in England at the moment. We've got plenty of players over there. I understand that there will be we have an option to replace him. The ICC would probably look favourably on an option to replace him if we continue in the Champions Trophy. But we've got another team, the Australia A team's over there. We've got plenty of artillery over there if we need to make a call on that. But it's too early to be making any suggestions of who that might be or how they do it.
Just a quick one. Michael Vaughan said David Warner must have a screw loose. It's hard to argue against it, isn't it? How do you sum it up? How can the guy do this at 2 o'clock in the morning?
Well, it's a good question. I don't know, but what I do know is that he shouldn't have been there in the first place, and in my opinion, nor should any of the other members of the Australian cricket team.
James, you said it would be difficult for him to play in that first test. This punishment realistically rules him out of that first test. He can't realistically be considered for selection if he hasn't had any time in the middle leading up.
It's the selectors who make judgments on who will get picked for the first test match. But my judgment as an observer of cricket is that if he can't play any matches between now and then, it's going to be very hard for him to show that he's in form and ahead of other players. But that's not my call. That's a decision for the selectors. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, James.